John Seiler here again with Behind the News and my helper, Ali. He's doing great today. We'll talk to him later. And we have something here today. This is a football. This is a football. When Vince Lombardi had a losing team, he was the great coach of the Green Bay Packers, won the first 2 Super Bowls, won 509 championships in his 9 years with the Green Bay Packers. When things are going badly, he would say, he'd call the team together and say, okay, team, this is a football. One time, one of the players said, Coach, can you go a little slower? The point is, he started with basics and went on from there. So today is the basics of the Ukraine war and Russia, which I'm going to start with. So we're going to start again. This is a nuclear football. A nuclear football is what the president holds. And it's not an actual football like this. It's a briefcase with nuclear codes in it for blowing up the world, which is what could happen. And they say it's like a Denny's menu where the president is showing these little plastic things and he says, blow up Russia, blow up China, blow up North Korea, blow up Iran, blow up whatever. So I got a lot of this information from this great book, which I reviewed a year and a half ago, Nuclear War, by Ann Jacobson, and I have the review online. I'll put the link below. It's on my Substack, which is johnseiler.substack.com. That's johnseiler.substack.com. Go there and make sure you subscribe to that. And for this, make sure you like and subscribe this video, which we're going through here with my friend Ali. We'll bring up a couple things about Russia. First of all, let's start with the nuclear weapons. This is the latest nuclear inventory from the Federation of American Scientists. And the United States has 5,225 nuclear weapons, bombs. Russia, 5,580, so they have a little bit more than we do. China used to have around 300 a couple years ago, but because of all the problems with Ukraine, they have 600 now. And France, 290, United Kingdom, 225, India, 172, Pakistan, 170, Israel, 90, although some people say they have more than that. It's an unofficial secret program, but you can read about it in Seymour Hersh's book. It's called The Samson Option, out a couple years ago. And finally, North Korea, 50. So those are nuclear powers, and the key is the ICBMs, which can go across continents. And Russia and the United States both have bombers and ICBMs and SLBMs, submarine-launched ballistic missiles. And an ICBM from Russia or China can hit us in 26 minutes. Goes up over the North Pole. Boom, we're gone. Any city in America, any military base, and we can't stop them. I remember Reagan had the Star Wars program, was officially called the Strategic Defense Initiative. I wrote a lot of stuff back in 83 when he announced it. But it never was feasible. It never really happened. And now George Gilder, the technology guy, says we could do it again, this time with lasers. Maybe he's right, but who knows? It's going to take a while. And China, as I said in my Substack post yesterday, is really ahead of us on science. So we'll see how that goes. And the thing is, we have, in addition to being blown up, there's 72 minutes to the world basically being wiped out. 5 billion of 8 billion people, because what would happen would be a nuclear winter. There's so much radioactive dust would be thrown up all around the world, the northern hemisphere probably, because of the explosions, and it would block out the sun, which sometimes happens with volcanoes. And then everything would get cooler. Al Gore would be happy because the temperature, instead of going up, supposedly would be going down 10 degrees, and he's a depopulation person, so that would be great for him. Get rid of 5 billion of 8 billion people, and while he's in his silo somewhere surviving. But it would not be Armageddon like in the Bible, although it would seem like it to people, because there still would be 3 billion people left. The human race would survive, it would recover, and people, as they said in the 60s, would envy the dead because you would still be alive in this horrible situation. Well, whatever that was like, but let's talk a little bit here about Russia, because this is Behind the News, and today we have the Financial Times on October 21st. Europe rallies to Zelensky's aid after tussle with Trump. Europe rallies to Zelensky's aid after tussle with Trump. Because Trump finally, I think, is becoming a realist on this war, that it can't be won. And I'm talking about realism here, about what's really going on. So Russia has these nuclear weapons. They can blow us up in 26 minutes. And they can do the same for Europe. So that gives them a certain power, and especially in their backyard. And let's start with the Cuban Missile Crisis, 1962. You might have read about that. It actually started when the United States put intermediate-range nuclear missiles in Turkey. And Khrushchev said, no, you can't do that, so I'm going to put some missiles in Cuba. And Castro hated America. Castro was the dictator there for a long time. So they were putting these missiles in there, and Kennedy said, no way. We would have had a nuclear war without it. And he reached a deal with Khrushchev to take our missiles out of Turkey. This came out later, 5 or 10 years later, because the election was coming up 62, and it was one of those rare elections where the incumbent party, the Democrats, gained seats in Congress, because Kennedy stood down the Russian, Khrushchev, he backed down. And so we won the Cold War again, even in 1962. And we were standing tall. So after that, we had, it did scare people too about it, and we had some nuclear arms agreements with the Russians eventually under Nixon in 72. But let's look at Ukraine now. Ukraine today is like Cuba was back in 62. It's what the Russians call the near abroad. We talk about the Monroe Doctrine. Nobody can mess with us in our hemisphere, Western Hemisphere. With Russia, that's the near abroad. Right now it's been reduced to Belarus, which is a little bit north of Ukraine, and Ukraine. And basically the Russians say there's no way you're going to put Ukraine in NATO, period. And because then you'll put nuclear missiles in to Ukraine. And according to Ann Jacobson in this great book, Nuclear War, when the nuclear missiles start flying, a president, whether Putin or Biden or Khrushchev or Trump, has 6 minutes to decide whether or not to launch a retaliation, because it could be a false positive. Could be the radar got it wrong and messed it up. So he has 6 minutes. But if you put missiles in Ukraine, it's 3 minutes to Moscow. Goes boom, 3 minutes. It's called the decapitation strike. So there's no way the Russians are going to allow that. And you have Zelensky and some people like Lindsey Graham who are saying, well, Ukraine has a right to do what it wants. They can join NATO. They can put missiles. No, they can't. Sorry. It's just like Cuba could not. Canada can't put missiles in Russian missiles or join with Russia. Mexico can't do that. They can do what they want to on other things, but they can't join with Russia or China. It's just that simple. Because we run this hemisphere and Russia runs where they are. And Ukraine, let's remember, is not part of NATO. It's an independent country, or at least it was. It could have stayed an independent country if they just kept their noses clean, but they followed Joe Biden into perdition, and now they will be the eastern part of it, probably east of the Dnieper River, and Odessa will be part of Russia. And most of the people there are Russian anyway, Russian language, Russian culture, Russian Orthodox Church, which is banned by Zelensky, so much for freedom of religion. And let's just look at Russia itself. John McCain, the late John McCain, said Russia is a gas station with missiles. And I've heard that repeated many, many, many times. You see it in the paper. Recently, Lindsey Graham and Senator Mike Blumenthal I think he's from Connecticut, one of those places back east. I'm from California, we don't care. One of those places, they were over there, and Blumenthal said, oh, Russia's just a gas station with missiles, like our friend John McCain used to say. No, it's not. If you look at the purchasing power parity measure for economies, it's the fourth largest. Number one is China, $40 trillion a year. Number two is United States, 30 trillion. Then comes India at about 9 trillion, and then Russia at 7 trillion. So notice two things. We're not number one anymore. China is 40 trillion, we're 30 trillion. And Russia is 7 trillion, so they're about, say, 1/4 or 1/5 of the United States, which is less than us, of course, obviously by the numbers, but still certainly plenty. And they've had developed the best missiles. They have the best ground equipment now, the best drones, all of this stuff. That doesn't mean they can win a war against us because, go back to the beginning of what I said, it'll be a nuclear war and we'll all be dead. So what has happened in this Ukraine war, though, Russia's tactic for fighting almost 4 years now is to deplete NATO of weapons. And let's make no mistake about it. It's NATO that's fighting this war. It's Trump that's giving the missiles to Ukraine. He's giving them the telemetry and all the information for attacking Russia. And it looks like he's not going to give them the Tomahawks, which would be shot down anyway, and there's not enough of them because they ran out. So this is really Trump. But Trump is realizing he's all along he's wanted to get out. I think that's sincere. But Trump listens to the last person he talked to, and a good that's a bad side of him. But a good side is that he has a way of getting out of jams. He doesn't like keeping things going. He really wants to get that Nobel Prize next year. Well, more power to him if he doesn't blow up the world. So this is where we are right now, the facts of Russia and the Ukraine war, and we'll see how long this goes. Russia now has been capturing more cities, and you have these stupid generals now. I haven't seen one general, these former generals, that's ever said anything of any sense. And you have General Keane. He's one of the dumbest ones. He keeps saying, well, Russia has only gone a couple kilometers in the last year. Well, it's more than that, but the whole point is to destroy the army of Ukraine. If you destroy the army, then it's gone. That's just your basic strategy from von Clausewitz and others, and that's what the Russians are doing there. That's their strategy, and by doing that and depleting NATO, then they can survive. And also, it's just foolish to think they would attack NATO, because NATO has an air force. Ukraine has no air force. They have a couple F-16s left. It was shot down early, but the U.S. Air Force is very good still. They've been adapting. They've been watching what's going on. And we have, the Navy has their planes as well. Mavericks out there with Top Gun, like in the movie a couple years ago. And our NATO allies have their planes. I don't know how good they are. Some of them are pretty good. And so that would be impossible. Plus Poland has a good army on the ground. And NATO originally was made for defense. I was over there in 1979 to 82. We were a defensive force. We never had any plan of attacking. So NATO could defend. It's this stupid thing where we got involved with this Ukraine war. It never should have happened. Never should have happened. It should have just been stopped immediately. And in fact, there was a deal in March or April of 2022. Russia and Ukraine had a deal over in Ankara in Turkey. But then Biden sent Boris Johnson, that mop-headed idiot from Ukraine, who's the most foolish prime minister, and they've had a lot of dumb ones lately. So he stopped that, and the war kept going, and here we are. And Ukraine now, their birth rate is like 0.7 per woman, and the population went down from 42 million to 25 million. They're going to have problems surviving at all in a few years. Thank you, Joe Biden. Thank you, neocons, for destroying Ukraine, not saving it. So that's it for today. I just wanted to let you know what's going on here. And Ali is down there. He's resting right now. I'll give him a treat later. So thanks, and remember to subscribe and like and subscribe for this, and sign up at my Substack, johnseiler.substack.com. This is a quick one for you on, I hope we can avoid nuclear war. Otherwise, I hope your bomb shelter's ready. Bye.